Story at 6. Congress is considering a hike in the federal minimum wage scale. Ralph Robinson will talk with a woman who says she had to go on welfare because the current minimum wage doesn't help her make ends meet. And it's looking more and more like smokers will pay an extra 10 cents per pack in state tax. All of today's news in 30 minutes.
More reports the NSC was a runaway operation. Cuomo's pullout scrambles the Democratic presidential race, and a key Wall Street player gets a jail term.
NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. There was another series of startling reports today about the freewheeling ways of the National Security Council under Admiral John Poindexter, and once again, Colonel Oliver North was placed in the middle of some high-risk plans involving invasions this time and kidnappings. These reports are coming out as the Tower Commission is preparing its final report on the NSC, a report that is widely expected to be sharply critical of the agency. NBC's Fred Francis tonight takes us through the latest disclosures.
According to published reports, when Iran was preparing to strike deep inside Iraq last fall, Oliver North gave to Iran highly sensitive intelligence on Iraqi battle positions. North reportedly provided Iranian agents with intelligence designated no foreign, not to be given to foreigners. Pentagon officials said that intelligence could endanger U.S. secret agents and compromise methods. Senior officials, including the Secretary of Defense, are incensed.
I have to confess that in many ways I think that's one of the worst parts of it, and I don't remember any specific authorization of this of any kind by the President.
It was also revealed today that the President did authorize the CIA and Oliver North at the NSC to try to kidnap terrorists and bring them to trial in the United States. The Justice Department confirmed the President signed a secret order in January of 1986 to authorize commandos to carry out the operations. North and the CIA never found anyone to kidnap. Some call the President's plan crazy.
It was wacky.
What?
Silly. Stupid. We don't want to get in the business of kidnapping people. We become terrorists ourselves.
And there was still more evidence today of a separate NSC foreign policy, what one officer called the most outrageous NSC horror story. It was a plan to get Egypt to invade Libya after the TWA hijacking in the summer of 1985, even though there is no evidence Libya was behind that terrorist attack. On White House orders, the Pentagon drafted an invasion plan which called for 90,000 American troops to storm Libyan shores and join Egyptian forces. The State Department and the Pentagon were strongly against that, so a less ambitious plan calling for carrier warplanes to support an Egyptian land attack was drafted. One source said when Admiral John Poindexter presented that option, Egyptian President Mubarak rudely rejected it. Collectively, today's revelations and those of months past portray a National Security Council that, in one official's words, was a fantasy land of comic book characters and plots that almost had the United States at war. One State Department official said sadly, "I guess the checks and balances weren't very good." Fred Francis, NBC News, Washington.
All of this prompted Senate Majority Leader Robert Byrd to call for the withdrawal of the nomination of Robert Gates as the new director of the CIA. Byrd said that Gates failed to inform Congress of these presidential findings, they're called, authorizing kidnappings and planning invasions. As for the president, well, he was putting his best public face on these matters today. As NBC's Andrea Mitchell reports tonight, Mr. Reagan is, among other things, caught between Mrs. Reagan and Mr. Reagan.
His political friends haven't lost faith, but the president is worried about the final 2 years, not another 4. Speaking to an audience of conservative activists, he acknowledged that lately the going has been a little rough.
The pundits told us that we couldn't expect to get anything accomplished even before we got to Washington. Now they're trying to bring the curtain down before the show's over. Well, I learned a lesson in my former profession, so let me give you a tip. We're saving the best stuff for the last act.
But the president's closest friends are worried that there may never be any best stuff. They're blaming his problems on Chief of Staff Donald Regan. The First Lady isn't denying that Regan has hung up the phone on her twice. Friends say she is furious with the Chief of Staff and that her husband knows it. Regan was in his usual place today, riding alongside his boss. He told aides he will not resign and blamed others for the latest problem. Questions raised about the new White House communications director, John Kohler. Press Secretary Marlin Fitzwater said Kohler did not tell the White House that as a 10-year-old he belonged briefly to a Hitler youth group in his native Germany. Fitzwater said the president is still comfortable with his selection. Kohler's supporters point out that he also served as an intelligence officer in the U.S. Army. Asked if he would step down, Kohler told NBC News, "Are you crazy? What the hell is this?" His sponsor at the White House and former boss, Charles Wick.
What is wrong with a 10-year-old boy, 6 months, being a member of this youth group? What disqualifies him to serve America?
And there are more problems. The president still has to worry about next week's report from the commission he appointed to investigate the Iran-Contra affair. That report expected to be very critical.
I think it is a little frustrating to the president. It's hard to focus on your agenda when you have to focus on all these other things.
Friends of the Reagans believe the only solution is a new chief of staff. But the president has told his friends that he won't fire Reagan while he's under a cloud. And Reagan has said he won't quit. Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, at the White House.
Mrs. Reagan today also did deny reports that she had leaked a story that she had stopped speaking to White House Chief of Staff Donald Reagan. And there was still another feud within the Republican Party today. Congressman Jack Kemp called for the resignation of Secretary of State Shultz, claiming that Shultz wasn't supporting the president's foreign policy. Kemp, who wants the GOP presidential nomination, made his demand while speaking to a conference of conservatives. Also coming up here tonight on NBC Nightly News, Ken Bodie reports on another free-for-all in the race for Chicago mayor. The black incumbent and a white challenger dividing the Democratic Party along racial lines. And John Hart tonight remembers that momentous day 25 years ago. John Glenn got America in the running in the space race.
Dad's bad, Mommy. Daddy's coughing like crazy.
Oh, you sound awful.
Give him my cough medicine.
Daddy needs something stronger than that.
When a strong cough comes on, adults need a strong medicine to help turn it off. Vicks Formula 44, the only liquid cough medicines with the maximum strength cough suppressant adults need in every formula for the relief adults want.
Let's go, Dad.
Formula 44, strong medicine to help turn a strong cough off. From Vicks, of course.
This man is missing nearly 1/2 of the fiber he should have every day. He's not the only one. The National Cancer Institute states that most Americans have diets lacking adequate fiber. Fortunately, just one serving of Kellogg's All-Bran has the amount of fiber needed to make up what the average person is missing each day. Kellogg's All-Bran. It can make all the difference.
Hi, I'm Eddie Payton. My brother Walter holds the all-time rushing record in the NFL. So lots of investment firms would love to tackle the job of managing his money. But one firm works just as hard for people like you and me. Dean Witter. They're helping me save on taxes and plan for the future. You see, with Dean Witter, you don't have to be a Super Bowl champion to be treated like one.
You're somebody at Dean Witter.
A member of the Sears Financial Network.
New York's Governor Mario Cuomo shed more light today on why he suddenly decided not to enter the Democratic presidential race. Cuomo said that it was part instinct and part reason that told him not to run. Whatever it was, this decision, which surprised even his closest aides when it was announced last night, sent shockwaves to the Democratic Party. NBC's Bob Kerr has more.
Governor Cuomo appeared relaxed today, content with his decision to stay in the governor's mansion rather than leave New York to campaign for president.
There goes our trip to Nicaragua.
He said his decision was difficult and personal.
I will not be a candidate.
He announced it on a New York City radio station last night.
The decision I've made, I think, is best for my state, best for my family, and I think also best for my party.
His announcement surprised nearly everybody, partly because earlier this week, Cuomo was in New Orleans, sounding very much like a candidate for national office.
To move straight ahead would be to move toward an ever-escalating arms race that saps our economy of the wealth and productivity that we desperately need in this country.
Cuomo's powerful speech at the 1984 Democratic Convention raised expectations that he would run for president, and recent polls put him way ahead of all Democratic hopefuls except Gary Hart. But Cuomo's friends say the governor did not want to subject his family to the intense scrutiny of a national campaign. His decision breaks wide open the race for the Democratic nomination.
There are probably a lot of candidates and potential candidates who woke up this morning, looked in the mirror, and said to themselves, "Hello, Mr. President," because they think that Mario Cuomo blocked them. They now have that potentiality.
Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis out of Cuomo's shadow now in Washington today, getting advice. Delaware Senator Joseph Biden headed south, driven by new expectations.
Florida's a very critical primary state.
Jesse Jackson considered his impact. Missouri Congressman Richard Gephardt enjoyed new attention. Former Arizona Governor Bruce Babbitt, like all the rest, hopes for campaign money that would have gone to Cuomo. And in Denver, Gary Hart appealed to Cuomo's supporters.
We hope that a substantial number of them will come in our direction.
Cuomo's decision leaves Hart the undisputed front runner, not always a comfortable position, as Hart showed Walter Mondale in 1984. Bob Kerr, NBC News, Washington.
Those presidential primaries still are a year away, but in Chicago, politics are being played fast and furious as usual, and race once again is a big issue. Mayor Harold Washington and former Mayor Jane Byrne are locked in a bitter mayoral primary for the Democratic Party. As NBC's Ken Bodie reports tonight, race has been the political issue in Chicago ever since Washington was elected 4 years ago.
Chicago, the town that Billy Sunday.
Former Mayor Jane Byrne. Some call her the white hope in Tuesday's Democratic primary. She's counting on a high turnout in Chicago's white ethnic neighborhoods. 4 years ago, Byrne lost City Hall when the white vote was split. And Chicago got its first black mayor. Nobody but Harold. Mayor Harold Washington. Black pride is running high in Chicago. Polls show the mayor will get just about all the black vote. Washington is trying to break the one-term jinx that has haunted every mayor since Richard J. Daley. County Democratic Chairman Edward Verdoliak is Washington's arch-enemy. He's running as a third-party candidate. His slogan is, "Anybody but Harold."
I felt it's most important. Not so important for me to run a Democratic primary as it is to try to give the best possible chance to defeat Harold Washington. And that would be with Byrne and he in a one-on-one.
If Byrne loses on Tuesday, Verdoliak is angling to become the next white hope. Each candidate campaigns some in the other's stronghold, but mostly for appearances. Byrne tried to campaign at this club.
We don't want over here!
Rally canceled. Whites and blacks are just about equally divided in Chicago. The challenge now is to make them equal partners in the city's future.
Here, how are you?
I'm gonna win, you know.
Oh, I gotta win. I need your help, though.
But 4 years after Harold Washington's election, this Democratic primary still boils down to one simple fact. As a local columnist put it, she's white, he's black.
We love
You see that picture? You got mine.
We just love him.
Ken Bodie, NBC News, Chicago.
If you get painful headaches, you should know that recently, people like you nationwide took part in the largest headache test ever. Extra-strength Tylenol against ibuprofen. Conclusion? Not even twice the initial recommended dose of ibuprofen is more effective than extra-strength Tylenol. And something else. Tylenol doesn't irritate your stomach the way ibuprofen can. If nothing is more effective for headaches, and Tylenol is gentler to your stomach, shouldn't your choice be Tylenol?
At Piedmont Airlines, when we serve you a beverage and coach, we do something no other major airline does. We leave you the whole can. Something we've been doing for years. It's a minor detail, to be sure. But minor details like this explain why frequent flyers have ranked our service among the best of any major airline. So fly Piedmont.
Oh, miss, you forgot this.
You'll find our attitude most refreshing. Piedmont, a model of how good an airline can be.
Everyone gets one. I can't believe you talked me into this.
Admit it. It's just too good to resist.
you're right. So, what's it called?
Fruit and...
Forget the fiber in fruit and fiber. You're gonna love it just for the taste.
Only Fruit and Fiber has all these lush combinations, overflowing with sweet fruit, fresh, crunchy nuts, and surrounded with the highest fiber flakes.
This is the greatest.
You're gonna love it just for the taste.
Toast Fruit and Fiber cereal. Tastes so good you forget the fiber.
The man whose arrest set off the biggest insider trading scandal in Wall Street history was sentenced today. Dennis Levine, the investment banker who pointed the finger at Ivan Boesky, got 2 years and a big fine. As NBC's chief financial correspondent Mike Jensen reports tonight, Levine would be spending a lot more time behind bars if he had not agreed to help the prosecutors.
The 2 years in prison and the fine of $362,000 come on top of an $11.6 million penalty Levine had already agreed to pay. Outside the courthouse, he seemed shaken and remorseful.
My family and I have been through a very tragic ordeal these last 10 months. It's been a very painful experience. I realize that I've committed very serious crimes, for which I'm very sorry, and it was a very painful lesson to learn. I hope that other young professionals starting out in their career learn and not make the same mistakes that I did.
The government said Levine made more than $12.6 million during his 5 years of illegal insider trading. Levine's lawyer said the investment banker had become an outcast and a leper and had received death threats because he helped the authorities. Judge Gerard Gattel said Levine had helped uncover a nest of vipers on Wall Street. He said Levine would have been sentenced to 5 to 10 years in prison if he had not cooperated. Using a fake pay telephone and tape recorder provided by the authorities, Levine collected incriminating evidence from his associates in hopes of shortening his own jail sentence. That led to cases against 11 other Wall Street figures, mostly small fish in the scandal. 3 have already been sentenced to a year and a day in prison. Levine also led the authorities to one of the biggest fish, Ivan Boesky, who agreed to pay a penalty of $100 million for his illegal insider trading and to plead guilty to 1 felony count. A lot of people on Wall Street thought Levine's sentence was too light.
I think he got away with murder on that one. I think he should get nailed a lot harder.
Levine will be eligible for parole after 16 months in prison. Meantime, the government expects to indict many more Wall Streeters during the next year as its investigation into the insider trading scandal widens. Mike Jensen, NBC News, New York.
Transportation Secretary Elizabeth Dole today urged Congress to force transport workers to take drug tests. Unions say that this violates their members' privacy, but Dole argued that the safety of the public outweighs the rights of railroad and airline employees and bus and truck drivers. She said these people literally hold the lives of others in their hands.
Dad?
Oh, Julie, look at your hay fever.
Oh, she hasn't had a sniffle all day. And they're ready to dance all night.
Thanks to research by Dow's pharmaceutical subsidiary, millions like Julie may now find relief from allergies without the drowsiness often associated with allergy treatments.
You can make a difference in what tomorrow brings.
Save me a dance.
'Cause Dow lets you do great things.
When it's cold and rough outside, try something warm and creamy inside. Cream of wheat hot cereal and instant mix and eat. Their smooth texture always lets the flavor come through. 2 great ways to come in from the cold.
You won't believe how great it holds your lower dentures.
It's extra hold for lowers.
Finally, I can eat, sing, even laugh with more confidence.
It's extra hold for lowers.
You won't believe how great it holds your lower dentures without messy ooze.
It's extra hold for lowers. And it's from Fasteeth. You won't believe how great it holds your lowers.
You won't believe it.
Was Britain's Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher the target of an intended terror attack by the Irish Republican Army? 2 suspects from Northern Ireland were brought to a London court today. They were charged with conspiring to cause explosions and possession of explosives and firearms. These arrests followed heavy security in recent weeks throughout London. Police won't confirm it, but there is speculation that one bombing was intended for Mrs. Thatcher at the wedding of her son Mark last weekend to Diane Bergdorf of Dallas, Texas. It was just 1 month ago today that Terry Waite disappeared in Beirut, and there is nothing new to report on the whereabouts or the condition of the British hostage negotiator tonight. But there is something to report tonight about the American hostages in Lebanon. This comes from Abu Iyad, a top official of the Palestine Liberation Organization. He claims to have connections with Hezbollah, a pro-Iranian terrorist group that holds many of the hostages. And NBC's Rick Davis has more on this story tonight from Tunisia.
Abu Iyad is security chief of Fatah, Yasser Arafat's wing of the PLO. His intelligence network and personal connections reach deep in Lebanon. He says foreign hostages there will be held for a long time.
I believe without any doubt that the hostages will not get out before 1989. But I am sure in the same time that they will not be killed or harmed.
What is the reason they will hold the hostages for another year or two and not release them?
I believe that 1989 will have given Hezbollah some years to consolidate their gains on the ground. Hezbollah now protects themselves behind the hostages.
Where does this information come from?
Yes, we have our sources inside Hezbollah, and we have other sources in Lebanon.
Hezbollah, the party of God, radical Shiites closely allied to Iran. The spiritual leader of Hezbollah, the Ayatollah Fadlallah, denies his followers are involved in kidnapping. But Abu Iyad of the PLO says all groups in Lebanon using the name Islamic Jihad or Revolutionary Justice are Hezbollah. What would happen if the United States does try military action in Lebanon?
This could lead to the killing of the hostages.
About Church of England envoy Terry Waite, now missing for 1 month. Abu Iyad says Waite is being questioned by his captors because they believe he is involved with U.S. intelligence agencies. There could be two reasons for Abu Iyad's statements about the Hezbollah and the hostages. First, he wanted to say the PLO was not involved in hostage-taking. Second, he may be a messenger for Hezbollah. Abu Iyad is a trusted man in many European countries. One diplomat said, "You couldn't find a better messenger than Abu Iyad." Rick Davis, NBC News, Tunis.
The mother of Mehmet Ali Agca, the man who tried to kill the Pope, met with the pontiff in the Vatican today. Mrs. Agca begged Pope John Paul's forgiveness for her son's crime. The Pope replied that he had already forgiven Agca, who is serving a life sentence for the shooting. The Pope then gave Mrs. Agca a picture of the Madonna and child. She got to see John Paul without an appointment, something Vatican officials say never happened before. Soviet authorities today released the dissident Yosef Begun from prison after a week of conflicting reports about his status. Members of Begun's family and other dissidents staged sometimes violent demonstrations in Moscow last week, demanding the release of the Hebrew teacher. He served 4 years for anti-Soviet activity.
Now, colorful stain and tough polyurethane protection in one. Polyshades by Minwax for a beautiful finish in half the time.
Minwax makes wood beautiful.
How much can you save on 18 new Buick models? It's your option. You can save up to $1,200 depending on the amount of optional equipment you buy on a wide variety of new Buicks. You'll also get something that isn't optional. Buick's new 6-year, 60,000-mile warranty. It's truly a better time to buy. So see your participating Buick dealer for details now. The amount you save is optional. The 660 warranty is standard. At Buick, where better really matters.
Where would the Democrats take us in '88? Congressman Richard Gephardt, the first Democrat to formally announce his presidential bid, he'll throw his hat in the ring Monday, meets the press Sunday.
Cholesterol has natural enemies. Deep-sea cold water fish contain oil with omega-3 that recent studies indicate helps control high serum cholesterol. Because your diet may not contain enough of these fish, Squibb introduces Proto-Chol, a dietary supplement of fish oil rich in omega-3. captured in a sealed gel cap. So eat a low-fat diet, exercise, and take Proto-Chol, a natural enemy of cholesterol.
When you need it most, you can get extra strength relief from heartburn with extra strength Riapan Plus. In lab tests, ounce for ounce, it neutralizes twice the acid as regular Maalox or Mylanta. It's that strong. Extra strength Riapan Plus.
25 years ago today, February 20th, 1962. Remember? A national hero was born in the course of a single ride around the Earth in an American space capsule. John Glenn's successful orbital flight, the first for this country, was so much more than just a space shot, however. As NBC's John Hart helps us remember tonight, it was a time of testing America's place in the world.
As the year began, Moon River was the Grammy Award song. Marilyn Monroe still had 6 months to live. In January, President Kennedy ordered the 3,000 American advisors in Vietnam to start shooting back when fired on. The twist was the dance of the hour. The minimum wage was $1.15. The national budget was then what the Navy's budget is now. The Berlin Wall was 6 months old, accusing us of failure as freedom's champion. The U.S. felt pressed by communism.
And when one man is enslaved, all are not free.
In February, the president stopped all trade with Cuba, where the Bay of Pigs invasion had already failed to get rid of Castro. 4 years before, the Soviets had beat us into space with a Sputnik satellite, and beat us again 10 months before by putting the first man into orbit, and then the second. Americans were feeling humiliated by communists. Our pride was riding on John Glenn in what he later called the great cosmic drag race with the Russians.
Godspeed, John Glenn.
I went finally on the first orbital flight on the 11th scheduled date. We didn't take a chance with weather or anything else.
Something went wrong with the automatic flight system, and Glenn had to fly much of the mission by hand.
We are recommending that the retro package not be jettisoned.
Ground control thought the heat shield was coming loose and ordered the retro rocket pack kept on as a fastener.
But that was a real fireball, boy. I had great chunks of that retro pack breaking off all the way through.
This 5-hour flight restored America's confidence and began a surge of space-age technology and achievement that lasted a quarter of a century.
And we had, through that nearly quarter of a century, we had triumph after triumph after triumph after triumph, one after the other. And then we were fallible, and a tragedy paid for all those triumphs.
Now some space scientists suggest a withdrawal from space in the next quarter century.
The military won't be in space because satellites are too vulnerable. We won't have communication satellites anymore because cable and fiber optic would be cheaper and higher quality. We might have a couple of weather satellites up there, but that might be it.
And again, it might not. John Glenn wants to go to Mars for the basic research.
To know the new things first gives us control over our own future without being dependent on other nations.
Glenn was the third human in orbit, but the first American. That was enough. John Hart, NBC News, New York.
That's Nightly News for this Friday night. I'm Tom Brokaw. Connie Chung will be here tomorrow night. I'll see you again on Monday.
The reporter gambles with Stingray's life.
Anyone can blow your cover, I can.
Will Stingray make a killing?
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned.
Stingray. Then it's 2 hot hours of Miami Vice.
What if I'd Calderon?
Is this the end of the Calderon legacy?
Come on and play!
Get twice the Vice tonight.
Coming up next from News Center 13.
Student scuffles raise concerns at Des Moines North High School.
This man is using his life insurance policy to cut his taxes. Jim Strickland with a special report.
And oh, those beautiful eyes. Diane Roberts has a look.
Plus, Mike's forecast and Jeff in a tuxedo. Coming up next from News Center 13.
Your Nissan dealers are kicking the competition right where it counts. The bottom line. Compare the bottom line price of our 5-speed Sentra with a comparable Toyota Tercel or a Honda Civic. Compare the Stanza with Toyota and Honda. Or compare our luxurious Maxima to the Toyota Cressida. All at rock-bottom prices. And now, special factory incentives can save you hundreds more. But don't wait, and don't pay more. See one of these greater Iowa Nissan